Good morning again. We will get started. Once again, if you're just joining us, my name is Melissa Bauer and I am the Director of Sustainability at the Pet Sustainability Coalition. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today for our How to Recycle a Smarter Labeling System for the Pet Industry conversation. We've got a couple of great speakers. I'm really excited to share it with you. So let's dive in. All right, a little bit of housekeeping first. All attendees on this call have been put on mute and your video turned off. We appreciate if you will maintain that for us so that we can give as much attention to the possible to our speakers. We all have a chat going right now, which my team is monitoring you. If you have any questions or if you're having any technical difficulties, please don't be shy and they'll be happy to help you. They'll also be answering questions along the way. So please feel free to drop a question at any time in that chat and they're going to answer it as best you can. But if you have a question for our speaker, we'll be leaving plenty of time to chat and give you the opportunity to ask them questions at the end. We're going to be doing that via chat box. So we don't have, 30 people asking questions at the same time. So we just, once again, even when we get to the Q&A part of this call, we ask that you stay on mute with your video off, but be asking all those questions in the chat. And then the last thing to touch base on really quick is that we will be sending a recording of this call and a copy of all of the slides from all of the presentations today to everyone who registered. So you can look for that from us shortly after the webinar. So a quick introduction to who we are at the Pet Sustainability Coalition. We are a nonprofit industry association in the pet industry. We work directly with many different, about 140 different companies in the pet space, everyone from retailers and suppliers to distributors, manufacturers, brands, and all along the supply chain. We are also a global organization. We have membership in North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia, and we are growing fast. So how we work with our members is in two different ways. First of all, really collaborating with all of our members to help them support their individual sustainability journey, whatever that means for that individual's company's culture goals, business goals, etc. But we also want to serve and are beginning to expand our services in addressing kind of large scale, environmental issues that impact all of us in the pet industry across the supply chain and that are really too large for one company or one sector to solve. So one of the ways that we are working on it and one of those initiatives is really trying to demonstrate sustainable packaging leadership. This is a huge focus area for us. And we are tackling that in many different ways. So we put out a study last year, if you haven't had a chance to see that, that there's 300,000 pounds of pet packaging going to landfill just in the US alone every year. That is way too big of a problem to be solved by one company or to tackle with one method. So we are tackling this problem in a myriad of different ways. We have a packaging part of our online toolkit that is available to anyone on this call with a myriad of tools and resources to help you on your sustainable packing journey. We also are piloting a take-back program to decrease landfill waste for our packaging that is in the system right now that doesn't have a good end-of-life journey. We're launching sustainable packaging awards for our industry and a packaging expo. More of that, you'll see about that in the fall. And just because I've been getting a lot of questions on it, in case you're wondering, you should absolutely check it out. This take back packaging pilot, we're really, really excited about. Actually did a webinar on it last month called Flex Forward if you'd like to learn more about that. But really excited to get into today's webinar. We're going to have two great speakers for you today. One is Lauren from the How to Recycle program. She's amazing and is going to talk about the actual How to Recycle process, sorry, excuse me, and company and the label and how they do. And then we have Glenn from Partners Packaging, who will be talking to us of how, you know, these technologies and these labeling systems can be specifically implemented in the pet industry. So I will stop screen sharing. Lauren, are you with us this morning? Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Hi, Melissa. Yep. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just let me know once you can see that.
Absolutely. Looks great.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Melissa. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Rowell. I'm a project manager for How2Recycle. Really happy to be here today, talk to you guys about How2Recycle. I'm going to go over kind of how our labeling system functions, what membership looks like, answer any questions you have around How2Recycle. So to give you a bit of context of how How2Recycle became what it is today, I'm going to tell you all a little bit about how the organization that we live under, Green Blue, an environmental nonprofit focused on material sustainability. We bring together a diversity of stakeholders to encourage innovation, best practices, and promote the creation of a more sustainable materials economy. A piece of Green Blue's work is the Sustainable Packaging Coalition, that logo down there on the left. So the Sustainable Packaging Coalition, or SPC, is how it's shortened, is inclusive of all materials, all supply chain positions, even government and academic entities. So SPC has various projects, but what we'll be talking about today is How2Recycle. So we're a standardized smart labeling system for recyclability. And in our work, we often talk about the circular economy. So I just want to make a note on this right now. This diagram might help put our work here at How2Recycle into a bit more context of the larger supply chain of material usage. So here we can see kind of how materials move through the circular economy. Ideally, all that goes in should come out in another usable form, so whether through composting, energy recovery, but today we're going to talk a bit about recycling. So although today you all listening in might be in various parts of this supply chain, various parts of this diagram, you can see that what you do, the decisions that you're making every day, do trickle down to that package's end of life and hopefully the start of another. So we understand that recycling does have big problems that need to be addressed. Most recyclables still end up in landfills. Recyclers struggle with contamination in a multitude of ways. And for consumers, recycling is really difficult to understand, making communicating around recycling a really vital step in that solution. So SPC brand members saw a need for How2Recycle, and we finished our soft launch of the labeling system in 2012, and it has evolved into what you see today. So a couple of goals. How2Recycle is designed with those problems of the recycling system in mind. So we're aiming to reduce confusion by creating a clear, well understood, nationally harmonized label that enables companies to convey to consumers how to recycle a package. So improving the reliability, the completeness, and the transparency of recyclability claims, providing a labeling system that follows the FTC Green Guides, the Federal Trade Commission Green Guides, and increasing the availability and quality of recycled material at the end of life. So How2Recycle started with a small pilot group of brands, but now has over 240 brand donor members that feature the label on their package today. And How2Recycle also expanded a bit to have a membership structure specifically for material manufacturers and converters, so that our reach is beyond just what a consumer might see on shelves. We touch much earlier on in the supply chain now, giving packaging design feedback to over 80 of our manufacturer and converter members, most of which then supply packaging to our brand owner members. So although you might look at this diagram and think my day-to-day work might not impact how a consumer will experience that package down the road, the consumers are the ones burdened with that task of the end of life of that package, so we must keep that in mind throughout the whole process. So How2Recycle is a great resource in helping companies have more insight into the recovery of those materials, how to design a more recyclable package. We're posed with a question that has a pretty complicated answer though at this point. So what is recyclability? What does it mean to call something recyclable? A resin identification code, a RIC, does not notate the recyclability. So just calling something recyclable doesn't mean it's actually recyclable. So we take a pretty nuanced approach to recyclability. This is what it means to us. And with every How2Recycle label that's assigned, brands receive a custom recyclability feedback for that package, a custom assessment for that package. And our analysis considers many factors. So just to highlight these 4 categories, we have applicable law, collection, reprocessing, sortation, and end markets. So How to Recycle labels are designed to comply with the FTC Green Guides and the Competition Bureau of Canada's guidance in Canada. So these entities help to dictate how we should make marketing claims around sustainability. And so here that means around recyclability. We continue to consult with FTC on an ongoing basis, and we have changed specific labels for certain packages as a direct result of FTC feedback in the past. Next, we look at access to recycling. So in other words, how many of the collection programs available to the consumers will accept the item. So how many communities can accept it through curbside or store drop-off recycling. We use the most up-to-date information for collection, and we make sure to keep our members up to date with any changes to access are made. So next we look at sortation. For how those items are collected in a residential program, what's the likelihood that something is actually correctly sorted in a MRF, and does it get into the right bale? Then we look at reprocessing. There are some aspects of a package design that are going to cause problems for reprocessors, like for example, a poly coating on paper or certain closures on plastic containers. So then finally, we look at end markets. If there's no market for something, then we don't want to call it recyclable. And we know that there's no straightforward, easy way to assess end markets across an entire material in a standardized way. So accordingly, we look to a variety of considerations when we are looking at the end market for a package. So I want to take a minute too, though, to note that plastic film does have a different recycling stream. So plastic film is a contaminant in curbside recycling. So eligible PE film must be taken to a collection bin in order to be recovered. So this is like when you take your plastic bags from the grocery store back to that retailer. So store drop-off is the only recyclability option for this PE film in the US, and that's the only one that's at scale today. So because store drop-off does have a really different collection and reprocessing process than any other curbside recycling system, there are limits around store drop-off applications. So think about a jar of peanut butter and how much residue is left from the product when the jar is emptied. It would be really unreasonable to expect a consumer to make that package clean and dry before taking it to a store drop-off bin. So, and How to Recycle is all about standardization and consistency across all of our labels and across all packaging types. So we want to think about the common sense for the consumer. How to Recycle is a consumer-facing labeling system, and we don't want to let brands call something recyclable when it's not, and we certainly don't want to give consumers, that existential crisis that they're asked to do surgery or give a bath to a package at the end of the life. So we think about all of these common sense, real-life experiences of the consumer when we are taking that into account to assign a How to Recycle label to that package. So every new label needs to be consistent with or same or similar with those that came before it to encourage the sense of standardization across How to Recycle labels. We take a holistic and thoughtful approach when we determine every label, and we translate those technical terms of recyclability and package design into the simple language that consumers can understand. So we consider how every component can impact the overall recyclability of a package. So we might provide special instructions as necessary to inform the consumer how they should prepare that material for recycling. We also evaluate the impact of product residue on the package's recyclability, as I mentioned. So that leads to kind of what the consumer sees on package. So they see the How to Recycle label on package, and each label has every key characteristic noted here. We delineate between the material and the component, include special instructions as needed that the consumer might need to do to prepare that package. How to Recycle website will always be featured on every How to Recycle label. And we also might dictate the recyclability. We will dictate the recyclability of every component. So the labels will address all major components of that package. So although the recyclability assessment that we do behind the scenes will address feedback for all components, the consumer only sees exactly what they need to do in order to handle the package. So when a consumer sees a label, brands know that they're directly communicating with their consumer. And you can see here that 67% of people assume that a package is not recyclable if there's no messaging around recyclability on there. So beyond that, we know that from our consumer survey report that there's behavior change and learning coming directly from the label on package. So 61% of consumers change their behavior and 81% learn about recycling from How to Recycle labels. And even if a package is not recyclable, consumers still have overwhelmingly positive feedback on this messaging. So when we asked consumers on our consumer survey report their impression of a company and how it's impacted by a not yet recyclable label. So this is a label that tells the consumer not to recycle it. They should send it to their garbage, to landfill. 87% of respondents still felt more positively about the brand. Consumers appreciate the transparency, and even if they're disappointed, it's likely because the package is not recyclable. And so How to Recycle members are not only able to feature the How to Recycle labels on their packages, but we also do have the member platform, which is that member benefit that you're able to give. We give direct feedback on how to improve brands' packages for recyclability. So a little bit of insight into what the member platform entails. We created 3 color-coded categories for the overall recyclability of a package. So it makes it a bit easier to look at. And we want to make sure that brands know where their packaging falls on the design spectrum. So maybe something is optimally recyclable, that means it's best in class. You know, nothing needs to be changed in order to make that package more recyclable. Maybe it's in decent shape and there are some areas for improvement. That's what that light green category is. And then maybe a package falls into the yellow, and maybe those are ones that you should tackle. Maybe they have design features that need to be changed. And we are placing each package in one of these categories in order to give you an easy understanding of what feedback and recyclability your packages have. So members see this information at the product level, but also they can see it in their portfolio level too. So this is an overall view of the portfolio of a brand. So some of our members have told us that they're using these metrics internally to drive packaging design improvements. Other members use this information to create incentives, and some use this to set and maintain goals. So maybe they're motivated because they've developed goals. Maybe they're motivated because they just don't know how recyclable their packaging is, but the member platform helps them understand the scope of their portfolio, work towards any goals. So we issue hundreds of recommendations a day to our members on how they can improve their packaging. And members take that feedback as direct guidance for design changes. These are a couple of examples of what that design recommendation might look like. So sometimes we tell them they should switch materials, like switching out of styrofoam, for example, or moving to a clear PET bottle, better than the colored bottle per se. So these package and design recommendations are based on insights from the APR Design Guide, Recycled Paperboard Alliance, and other key partners for How to Recycle. Members also have the option to submit packaging specifications for consideration, so for research and development, R&D. So this is a really beneficial step in which we'll tell them what How to Recycle label would apply if they did choose to run with that packaging type in the future. So this means they can get their R&D team involved earlier in the design process, so they aren't confused and upset that their package isn't recyclable after years of development. And so How to Recycle has meant a lot of things for different companies, and it's been valuable in different ways for different brands. But to point out just a few, How to Recycle sparks internal conversation about recyclability, creates shared meaning across a team as to what recyclability is, how you define that. It also gives brands an easier way of talking about recyclability with their suppliers. It provides an avenue for packaging innovation, like when used in research and development stages, for example. How to Recycle also helps brands connect with their consumers with on-pack messaging, and it broadens perspective on teams for material and format choices for packages. How to Recycle is also a way to create success stories from your team and from your company. So it doesn't matter wherever you are on this spectrum, on this diagram, you're still able to use guidance from How to Recycle to keep the concept of the recovery of your package in mind. So that's all I have for you today. So I will keep this up here for a moment. The best way to reach out for us about questions around How to Recycle or about questions around membership is just to reach us at howtorecycle@greenblue.org. You can also visit our website for a bit more information, howtorecycle.info. But I'm going to throw it back over to you, Melissa.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lauren. That is a amazing presentation. And I'm such a huge fan of you guys. The example I've been talking to our members is I gave my boyfriend a ginormous set of Legos for Christmas, and the How to Recycle label on that thing was insane. Like, here's what to do with the cardboard box, here's what to do with the plastic bag, here's what to do here's what to do with the actual Legos, and made a believer out of my non-believing boyfriend. So huge fan of you guys. We've got some good questions coming in for Lauren, so really appreciate that. And guys, stay engaged and keep asking those questions. We're going to hit that Q&A. But before we do, I want to turn things over to Glenn from Partners Packaging, who will be talking about how does this particular system, how does How2Recyclable specifically relate to packaging when we're talking about the pet industry. So good afternoon or morning, Glenn, wherever you are. How are you doing today? Can you join us?
I'm right here. Can you hear me?
I can. Let me get your slides up, and I'll hand it over to you, sir.
Okay, great. Well, just want to say good morning to everybody, and thanks for taking the time out to view this information. I want to thank you to the Pet Sustainability Coalition for the leadership Caitlin and Melissa show every day, as well as the entire team. They're doing great work by helping the industry know what to do and how to do it. And in these busy times, particularly now in this uncertain world and changing things that are going on, that's never more necessary. Thanks to Lauren as well and the How2Recycle team to develop an educational tool that actually links the brand owners to the consumer. It closes a big gap in the sustainability journey in my mind with the old resin codes 1 through 7 that we're used to and we grow up with. I think it's fair to say that it's led to a lot of confusion for the consumer to know what's the right thing to do with the package that's actually in their hand. So, yeah. Several of you may know me. I'm the principal of Partners Packaging. We're solution consultants. Worked around the flexible packaging industry for 20 some odd years, primarily in the pet industry though. I've worked with brand owners, large and small, and to find and engineer solutions to their flexible packaging needs. Tamfu is a Vietnamese company. They're family owned. They have 2 plants with overlapping capabilities just outside Ho Chi Minh. They print both Gravure and Flexo. Flexo is unique and unusual in Asia, but they're expanding into that print technology for various reasons. They're vertically integrated, which means they blow their own film and all the way through to a finished package. When it comes to recyclability, the fact that they're vertically integrated truly helps because this is a material solution that needs to be generated, but then creates all kinds of complexities along our supply chain and our processes. They have the capability and recycle most of their production scrap on site. So the site is set up so that they have zero waste, BRC certified, and soon the new facility will go for LEED certification. For those of you not familiar, it is the certification that the building in the industry is environmentally friendly. So what's involved in sustainability? It's truly a balance of 3 elements because if you have any one of these missing, you're going to be hard pressed to come up with a solution. It is the balance between the process, the economics, and the environment. So we'll come into that on the next slides. So is there a change in process? So if we had a silver bullet in the industry and yet it weighed and looked about the size of a bank vault, it was cost effective and environmentally friendly, it would not survive because unless it goes through our supply chains effectively, there's no chance or little chance for success. The best option is to have something that leads to as little disruption for the supply chain, the brand owner, and ultimately the consumer. So the less change, the better. Is it economically viable? Again, if you have a silver bullet, but it's $10 a bag, this will never work. So whatever process that comes out, in order to make it and achieve the sustainability, you're going to have to make it economically viable. Consumers will only pay so much. And is it better for the environment? And I refer back to the study that was done by EcoCycle last year that the Pet Sustainability Coalition worked with, along with the group at Only Natural Pet. And they ranked for the solutions preferred, acceptable, and options to avoid. Redesigning the pouches to be recyclable was one of the only preferred options chosen. The other one was so it's hard to, the other two were, for our industry, really not, they would involve too much of a process change. So recyclability seemed to be a good option. So what does the sustainability journey look like? So the only way to make recyclability more viable is through a collaboration of government, industry, and the public. If you don't have those three elements in play, it's going to be difficult for us to achieve the goal that everybody's looking for, which is ultimately the circular economy that Lauren spoke about in her presentation. From the government perspective, European governments are already taking action. They're already starting to assess the levies that will be placed on packaging as far as whether it's sustainable or not. There's work to be done still in Europe, and there's still some time left, but it's only going to be a matter of time before these changes come to North America. In fact, legislation has already been drafted that is very similar to the legislation that's been enacted in Europe. So as an industry, what are we doing today? Most of the pet food packaging is either polyester polyethylene or polyester met pet polyethylene. The challenge with these is, for the most part, these would be classified as a resin code 7 other, and therefore will become uneconomically recyclable. So this comes to our historical constraints to making a recycled package. Historically, we could only make a stand-up pouch. Bags over 5 pounds would not pass a drop test. The bags typically had a hazy look to them, so if you wanted a nice, crisp, clean window, it wasn't available. Because we're printing now on an extensible web, basically a rubber band, the print quality wasn't as good as the conventional bags. You had to compromise there. Registered mat was very challenging, and there was concerns over barrier for things like grease, which is predominant in pet food. So in 2016, Tanfu, along with ExxonMobil, developed a product called Veloflex. It is a monopolymer, linear low density laminated structure, and it's got these unique properties that solve a lot of our problems. First off, it's available in all formats: stand-up pouch, quad seal, flap and pinch bottom, and even roll stock. Closure options, press to close, appliques, not a problem. High gloss, clarity, so the bag really looks very, very similar. It'd be hard to pick a recycled bag out from a non-recyclable bag given today's technology. It's been proven to meet palatability, grease, barrier, and typical requirements of that are placed on most pet food. The gravure print allows for the highest quality resolution, so there's zero problems with print. You can also get a registered mat in very, very tight registration if you're looking for it. Been tested through ASTM standard drop tests up to 40 pounds. And this product is not only Trex certified, but it's Cycloss certified, which is European. It's How2Recycle approved. And in a European study, it was tested for its recyclability through a modern day MRF, and on a score out of 20, this product scored 20. So it really teams up well to close the loop in the cycle. So as a converting industry, we're now ready to make the packaging, and it seems like brand owners are making the commitment to redesign their packaging to recyclable. We see the move more and more every day. So then we come to the consumer. So we've got the government, it's coming. The industry seems ready. The next thing is the consumer. And so the industry organizations like the Sustainable Packaging Coalition, through their How to Recycle program, are creating that infrastructure of retail partners, because the question I get asked most often is, Glenn, okay, so we go to recyclable, but what do my customers do with it? And if you qualify for the How to Recycle, and we'll get to that, they can actually take it to many store drop-offs that are in. I've put a website up on this screen, and I invite you all to actually go to that website, put in your postal code, and it will give you a list of all of the store drop-off locations, or many of the store drop-off locations, probably not all of them, that are near where you're sitting right now. So it's interesting. There now is a way to get this product back into the recycle stream. So the process is simple. All we need to do is send us your product. We'll put it in a VeloFlex package and submit it to the How to Recycle team. That's the process today. On an ongoing, we're actually working with the Pet Sustainability Coalition, How to Recycle, to narrow down the parameters so that not every package will need to be tested. But currently, the process is to do it on a product-specific review, as opposed to just generically generating them. We all know that some products have more of a residue that's left. Lauren used the analogy of the peanut butter. And what we need to do is make sure in the real world that this package will end up going through the recycle system without a lot of residue or a lot of contaminant on the package, and therefore it will make for the best and most effective recycled content, which is what we want in order to create and enable the MRF to have a very high quality bale, which they then will sell to post-consumer purchasing. And it's short and sweet.
Great, Glenn. Thank you so much for providing that perspective of not only what has been the challenges with recycling packaging in the pet industry, but what are some good steps and how we can work with How to Recycle to further recyclable packaging in the pet industry. I also want to emphasize something. This isn't just for pet food and pet treats, right? This can be film around products such as puppy pads, bedding, things of that nature. So any kind of plastic packaging that we're talking about, and realistically, How to Recycle is so much bigger than just packaging. But for the sake of this conversation, any kind of packaging, whether that's food, treats, film, or anything, is eligible to try and get in this store take back program. So we've got a lot of discussion, which is great, but I want to open it up for questions. So let me take a look at the chat box. Also, I want to invite Anne and Sarah from my team, which are on the call. If you have any questions that you're getting that you want to enter, please don't be shy and let me know. So we've got a really great question from Mike Cody. Hey, Mike. This is probably a good question for Lauren. Mike wants to know, would kibble type packaging need to be washed prior to drop out? drop off, excuse me, what type of residue is acceptable, and is there any research showing what if consumers are actually willing to take this extra step?
Hey, Mike, great question. So because plastic film is different than rigid plastic, it's actually really difficult for consumers to realistically be able to wash it. So we don't want any product in that package that would need to be, given a bath before you have to take it to store drop off. That would involve like, washing the package, drying it, and then taking it to store drop off. It should just be able to be realistically clean and dried when it is emptied, or maybe a quick wipe. And so things like kibble, because the product category of pet food is just so new for How to Recycle to be tackling, we do ask, like Glenn and Melissa mentioned, that we do ask for a case-by-case basis for pet food and treats at this time. There are pet food applications and pet treat applications on the market that do feature a How to Recycle label, but those folks have gone through the process of the labeling system. So again, kind of case by case. You can reach out to us directly and we can talk more about that. As far as your last part of that question of if there is any kind of testing, trying to take that extra step, we haven't done testing on that just because we don't have the bandwidth at this time. We do have some brand members that want to do more consumer testing. We do have a consumer survey report that is ongoing on our website. So consumers can go on and tell us what kind of behavior changes and such they're doing. I referenced a couple of stats from that in the presentation earlier, but if you'd like more information, you can visit our howtorecycle.info website and you can find the consumer survey report on there. But that's the only testing that we have at this point that might relate to your specific question.
Thanks, Lauren. We've actually got another really great question for you, and everybody, please don't be shy. If you've got questions for our speakers, for Lauren at How to Recycle, or Glenn, or even myself, if you want to know what PSC is doing around recyclable and packaging, please let us know. That's why we're here. But got another question from Lauren. They were asking, you mentioned that it is good to have the How to Recycle label for brands, even if their packaging is not at this time recyclable. Do you guys have any materials to help brands talk about why communicating that their package isn't recyclable, but they're moving in that direction available?
Don't have any materials available. That's usually just a conversation we have with brands. Some brands, we encourage them to feature the not yet recyclable label on package. But of course, with your membership, we just ask that you feature at least one How to Recycle label on your packaging portfolio within the first year of membership. So you don't have to label something as not yet recyclable. But I wanted to point out that statistic that I mentioned in my slide deck, just because that is that's a very overwhelmingly positive response. 87% of consumers would rather see a not yet recyclable label on there. Sometimes brand members will put this label on there, and then maybe on their website, they will communicate what they're doing to change their packaging or things like that. But at this time, it's pretty cut and dry. Either members do feature the label on there and they're working behind the scenes, or they don't feature the label on there, but likely still working behind the scenes to make a more recyclable package.
Great. Thanks, Lauren. Got a question for you, Glenn, from Brian. Brian, thanks for the question. He says he thinks that all of this sounds great, but is there any chance of getting this package or some kind of domestically produced packaging option?
We're looking at that now. So I would say that's going to happen in the future. I can't automatically tell you how far in the future right now. Obviously, the current, with things going on with the pandemic, has changed a lot of things. But yeah, I would say that that's a distinct possibility.
Great. Thanks, Glenn. We've got time for about one more question. Got an awesome one. Thanks. I will address part of this, and then I invite Glenn and Lauren to chip in as well. We've got several people asking, are there any LCAs available comparing kind of How to Recycle number 4 store drop-off ready resin to conventional packaging, or some of the bio-based packaging that shows kind of the environmental kind of impacts of each one. I will say that here at PSC, this is something that we actually work on often. We have an entire suite of tools and resources working on helping member companies measure the environmental impacts of their packaging and their products to inform decisions while in the design process. So happy to help you with that. We also have a case study that we will be publishing just in the next couple of weeks that talks about a 3-way life cycle analysis that we did comparing conventional packaging to the number 4 monoresin to a bioresin. I know there's also many more LCAs available out there. So that's something that you can get through PSC, but also Lauren and Glenn, do you guys have any kind of LCAs that you ask people to look at specifically when we're talking about?
I don't have a specific LCA to point to, but the kind of umbrella organization over How to Recycle would be the resource to look at. So the Sustainable Packaging Coalition doesn't just focus on recyclability, and again is material neutral, but we do tackle the trade-offs between switching to different packaging structures. So whether higher carbon emissions or lower carbon emissions by switching from a rigid to a flexible, or less use of plastic but switching to a flexible, there are trade-offs in all categories. So I would just point someone, if they wanted to learn more information about that, the Sustainable Packaging Coalition would be a great resource. If you have any questions on that, shoot us an email and we can send you a bit more information.
Great. I've got one more question that it's a really great one, so I want to make sure that we cover it, and then a couple more things to chat before I let everybody go. This question is specifically for Lauren, and there's been a lot of conversation during this pandemic about consumers being nervous to bring things back, or recycling being in trouble due to the pandemic. Is this something that you guys are concerned about or are seeing in consumer behavior at all?
I think it's too soon to tell. Maybe in a couple of months we'll have a little bit more of a reflection on what's going on. But I guess I don't have any intentional or personal input myself from the How to Recycle team. I know that it is impacting things. I mean, everything is impacted right now, but I don't really have an answer for that in specific yet. But it will be really interesting to be able to look back on it in the next coming months.
Yeah, I agree. The environmental research that's coming out regarding the pandemic, I think is really, really interesting. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. A huge, huge thank you to Lauren from How to Recycle and Glenn from Partners for this great content and being willing to answer questions and share your expertise. I want to let everyone on the call know what our webinar series is going to be next month. For those who don't know, we do a webinar series here at PSC once a month on a huge array of topics. Next month, I'm really excited to say we're actually going to be doing a 2-part series exploring the Sustainable Development Goals and the new assessment that PSC has launched in partnership with B Lab to help member companies start to benchmark and improve their performance towards tracking towards those UN Sustainable Development Goals. We're going to be joined in part 1 of the series with B Lab, who'll be talking about what they're seeing in the industry and why they chose to develop this assessment and measuring towards the SDGs. And then we're also going to be hearing from an awesome PSC member, Moderna, who's been measuring against the SDGs for a while now and talking about how that has impacted their sustainability journey, sustainability communications, and kind of their business goals. And then the 2-part of the series, we're going to be doing live support for anyone who wants to take that SDG Action Manager directly with our project team, helping them get that assessment started and finished and answer any questions that we have. So I'll have the registration information for this in our follow-up email, but huge thank you to Lauren, huge thank you to Glenn, and huge thank you to everyone for joining us today on this really exciting conversation about moving recycling forward in the pet industry. So thank you so much for joining us, and everybody have a great rest of your day.